Salah and Son both gave us returns before they bounced off to AFCON and AFC respectively. So now who are we gonna replace them with? So before I get started with this list of potential replacements, I want to mention two things. First off, I'm not going to talk about Cole Palmer or Gordon because I've covered them so many times during my videos. So I want to talk about some different types of players that I want to, but I still think that they're both very, very good. Now, second thing, I think that in FPL right now, you ought to have two priorities with the upcoming game weeks coming up. So first thing is that you want to get rid of your AFCON and AFC players. That's priority number one. And I think priority number two should be making it so that it's easier to get Haaland back in, because I think he's going to come back for Man City's next fixture. He's been shown to be back in training along with Doku. So I think they've just been resting him, or I think they've let him recover from his injury, and I think they've given him a rest. I don't think they necessarily needed him for the Club World Cup, which Man City were going to win anyway. So I think Haaland will be back soon, and I think that should be on top of everyone's priorities in addition to AFCON and getting rid of AFCON and AFC players. Now, these are in no particular order, but my first pick is going to be Diogo Jota. There's two things that I love about him. First off are his numbers. So he recently came back from injury, right? And he played 6 minutes against Burnley and he got a goal in that match. And then in the next match against Newcastle, he also came on as a sub. He played for 25 minutes and he got 2 assists in those 25 minutes. That's what I love. That's the first thing I love about Jota. The second thing is just his style of play, the way he plays for Liverpool. When you watch him, he's not afraid to take players on, and he's also not afraid to take shots and make things happen on his own, which is what you love in an FPL asset. So why do we love Salah so much, and why is he such a great FPL asset? Is because he's not afraid to be selfish, right? That's one thing that we love about Salah. The second thing that we love about Salah is that when you watch him play, you kind of feel that Liverpool are setting him up to score. So a player would sometimes not take the shot so that he can pass to Salah so that Salah can shoot and score. Now, that doesn't particularly happen so much with Jota, but he's still much cheaper than Salah. So I think the price kind of justifies that. Now, what I don't like about Jota is, first off, his price is 7.7 million. So that kind of takes me off the potential to bring in Haaland. So it prices me out particularly, but it might not be the case for you. But I do want to get Haaland into my team, so this kind of makes it a hard one for me. Now, the second thing that I don't like about Jota is his potential for starting. Now, he has been a sub. He's come back from injury, and Salah is going to be off for a few weeks. What I've heard is that potentially this makes him 100% starter, but I'm not so sure about that, because on that right flank, Salah can be replaced by many different players, like Szoboszlai. He could be replaced with Szoboszlai. He could be replaced with Elliott. And then you also have the center forward position that is contested by two players. That's contested by Darwin Núñez and also Cody Gakpo. On the left, you have Luis Diaz as well, who could be competing with Jota for that spot. So I'm not quite sure. If you're a Liverpool fan and you have some insight on this, let me know in the comment box below. I know that Liverpool could also change their style from a 4-3-3 to a 4-2-3-1, which would mean that Jota starts in every single match. I'm not so sure about this, so if you have more insight on it, let me know in the comment box below. Otherwise, what I'm probably gonna do is just wait on this. I mean, obviously, it's still hard for me to bring him in because he prices me out of Haaland, but my advice for this would just be to wait 1 week and see how Liverpool line up without Salah before making this decision to bring Jota in, who otherwise would be such a brilliant asset to have in that Liverpool attack. My next pick is Jarrod Bowen. Now, what do I love about him? First off are his numbers. His numbers do not lie. In his last 6 matches, he has gotten returns in 4 of them. And also, just in general, he is the third best performer in FPL as of the moment. He's only behind Son and Salah. He's better than Saka in terms of his numbers, even though he is 1 million cheaper. So those numbers do not lie whatsoever. Now, the second thing that I love about him is his position. So he's classified as a midfielder in the game, but actually, in reality, he plays more as a forward for West Ham. So he's either a very, very advanced midfielder, or he sort of plays in a false 9 position, or even as the lone attacker, when Antonio is not playing for West Ham. So those are two brilliant things about Bowen. I think it's a very, very good pick. Now, what are my question marks on Bowen as of now? First off, you've got Lucas Paqueta, who is the main playmaker for West Ham. He is out injured as of now. Also, you've got Kudus, who is out on international duty in AFCON. So those two are main playmakers for West Ham, and they provide the service to Bowen to score his goals. Now, both of those are going to be off, which I think hinders the amount of chances that Bowen gets. So I think before you get Bowen into your team, I already have him in my team, so I don't have to worry about that, and I'm not worried about him because I think he's just a very, very good long-term option. But I think before you get him in, I think one thing that you have to factor in is how much do you believe in Bowen's ability to be a very, very good FPL asset, even without the service of those two players who usually give him the chances that he gets to score his goals. If you believe he's still got a good chance, and you can also weigh that in with your decision, and you can also maybe wait and just see how he performs without those two players. I think Paqueta should be back from injury soon, so that should alleviate things a little bit. But if you believe he's still a good asset without those two, then I would bring him into your team. But I think that's just the main question that you want to answer before you bring him in. Phil Foden has looked great recently. He's gotten 3 returns in his last 3 matches, including a 12-pointer in Man City's last match against Sheffield United, where he got 2 assists and he also got 3 bonus points. Now, his expected goal involvement on average is 0.46. In other words, that means that whenever he is playing, there is almost a 50% chance that he will come back with a return. And he has been playing for 90 minutes in all of Man City's last matches. Now, the problem with Foden is that I think he is going to be a rotation risk because Kevin De Bruyne is coming back into the team very soon, and Haaland is also coming back into the team very soon. So I think Pep Roulette is going to be back on the menu. Now, Foden is a brilliant pick. I still think he's fantastic whenever he's playing, but I think that when you get him in, you have to just keep in mind that in some matches he is going to be rotated out. So if you're prepared to face that downside, balance it out with that very good upside that he has. Just weigh that into your decision. He will be rotated at some point, so that will leave you with some disappointment. But otherwise, brilliant, fantastic pick. Now, next, I want to talk about one of the trickiest players on this list. It's Bukayo Saka. Now, I haven't had him in my team since game week 8 when I wildcarded, but I think what makes him very, very tricky is just the many different aspects that you have to look at before you want to get him in. Now, first off is his form. In his last 5 matches, Saka has only gotten 1 return, and that was in his last match. Before that, between game week 15 to game week 18, he got a return in each of those matches. Nothing very explosive, but there's a goal here or an assist over there, just to keep it consistent. Now, he's only gotten 2 double-digit hauls this entire season, and that was one in game week 1 and another one in game week 6. So not necessarily the most explosive type of player. At the same time, now you've got Arsenal, who are currently in bad form at the moment. So they lost against Fulham in their last match where Saka scored. And before that, they also lost against West Ham. I think this break comes at a good time for them so that they can regroup and sort of come back into 2024 and hopefully try to bounce back, try to become in better form. This break came at a very, very good time for them. But the recent form has been very, very bad, and Saka's form in general has been at sometimes good and consistent, but not very, very explosive, and at some points bad, where you might question why you want to pay 9 million for him. Now, the other aspect of him, which I think what makes this very, very tricky, is his ownership. Right? He is owned by 59.1% of all FPL managers. So that's higher than Haaland, that's higher than Salah, that's higher than Son. He's the highest owned FPL player. Now, what does that mean? It means that when he does well, which he has the potential to do because he plays for a very, very good team. When he does well, if you don't have him in your team, you're going to get a big red arrow, or you're going to get a big potential for a big red arrow. That's, I think, the main risk. That if you want to get Saka into your team, you wouldn't be getting him in for his current form, which is shaky at best, or 50-50 at best. But you would be getting him just to be safe because so many people own him. And if you don't own him, it's going to punish you really, really badly when he does well. So that's what I factor into my decision. It's like, if I want to get Saka in, it's not due due to him doing really, really good recently because he hasn't. And Arsenal have been struggling really, really, really badly. But I would get him just to be safe because a lot of people in my mini league have him. And so when he does well, I'll be punished. And also in general, I'll be getting punished because a lot of people own him worldwide. Pascal Gross is an attacking playmaker for Brighton. Now, he's been in decent form. He's gotten 4 returns in the 7 last matches where he played 90 minutes. His blanks were against West Ham, against Tottenham, and against Arsenal. So not necessarily, no shame in getting blanks against those teams because they're tough fixtures. Brighton have looked better recently. They are sort of bouncing back. They won 4-2 against Tottenham, which was a really, really good result. And in their last game against West Ham, they looked much better than they have been earlier in this season. Now, in January, they're not going to have any European fixtures, so that'll be out of their way. That's something that's hindered them earlier this season, and that's going to be out of the way. Also, they've got a run of very good fixtures coming up, which hopefully you can expect them to bounce back and get some very good results. Now, one thing about Gross is that he's 6.4 million. He's expected to play 90 minutes every match, and he is on set pieces for Brighton. He doesn't shoot their penalties. That's for Joao Pedro, but he's on their set pieces and he's involved in their attacking play. And he's someone with that price, he could be an enabler. He is an enabler for me because when I sell Salah to Gross, I get the funds necessarily to upgrade Alvarez to Haaland. So that's why I'm considering him very heavily. Don't expect him to haul every single week. I mean, his results show that every other week he might get you a return. But just keep in mind, you're paying 6.4 million for him. He could be someone who starts consistently and gets you returns, playing for a team that's slowly getting back into form and are very, very good when they're in form in the Premier League. Due to circumstances not within my control, I had to continue the video on the next day, so I'm going to continue with Michael Olise. I want to emphasize form over fixtures over here, even though Olise's fixtures are very, very good upcoming, especially after his next one against Arsenal away. But I want to emphasize on form a bit, just because a lot of players, we sometimes get trapped into not getting them because their fixtures might be a little bit hard. But I think we've seen a lot of different examples from top players and players in good form who perform very well in their tough fixtures. Clean sheets, especially from an attacking perspective, like clean sheets have been very minimal this season. And so whatever team it might be, like for example, Man City barely keep clean sheets these days. So you can say that these players will always perform well against them, at least from an attacking perspective. Now, Olise has been in very, very good form in his last 4 games against tough teams. You've got Man City, you've got Brighton, you've got Chelsea, you've got Brentford. He got returns in all of those matches. And in his last one against Brentford, he scored 2 goals and he got 3 bonus points. So he's currently on fire. Now, one caveat to him is that he is currently an injury concern. He missed out on Crystal Palace's last cup match. So before you get him in, just make sure that he is deemed fit for Crystal Palace's next match against Arsenal away. I still think there's potential for them to make an upset in that one. Now, Olise, I think, is a good pick. He plays as an attacking midfielder for Crystal Palace and sometimes on the right wing for them. Explosive pick with a high ceiling. I think as opposed to Gross, who's more of a steady type of player who might get to use points consistently, he is more of an explosive one with a much higher ceiling. So I like Olise a lot for that reason. And at 5.9 million, you might not be so disappointed if he doesn't turn out to be as well as you thought he was. Garnacho is next on my list. Now, he has been in quite good form recently, and he's been kind of a bright spot for Man United's team, who have been quite in an unstable state this entire season, but he's been a bit of a bright spot. In his last 2 matches, he got returns, including a 14-pointer against Aston Villa. In his last match, where Man United lost against Nottingham Forest, he got an assist for a 4-pointer in total. Now, there's many reasons not to opt for Man United players, obviously, but what I like about Garnacho is that he is an enabler, and I think it's just like, look, you have to prioritize what you want for your team, right? Are you looking for points right now? Are you looking for players who are kind of like guaranteed and you don't care so much about money? Then you might go for someone like Bowen, or you might go for Gross, or you might go for Foden, even with the risk of rotation and everything. But then what I like about Garnacho is that he enables you in many ways. First of all, he enables you to switch your formation to a 3-4-3 rather than a 3-5-2. So you could have him on your bench as a first sub, and then you can upgrade your attack with all the funds that is left over because he's only at 4.8 million. And then another thing is that he enables you, in another way that he enables you is that because if all the spare funds that you have will mean that you can get to have Holland right now, and then afterwards, when Son and Salah are done with their national team competitions, they can come back and you can bring them into your team as well. So I like Garnacho for both of those reasons, not specifically for his form or Man United's form in general, because I think that there are other picks that might be safer in that regard, but just for the long-term potential for him and what he enables you to do with your team. Next on my list is Douglas Luiz. Now, he's a bit of a tricky player because he just comes back every now and then and reminds you that he's one of the FPL picks. So recently, in his last 3 matches, he's gotten two. In two of those matches, he's returned. Now, he's just a weird type of player because he differs from everyone that I've said on this list so far, in that he doesn't play in a very advanced role. He's more of a deep lying playmaker, so he plays more in central midfield, but he's on set pieces for Aston Villa, and he's also on penalties. So, and 25% of their goals this season have been from set pieces or penalties. So 11 goals out of the 43 that Aston Villa have scored so far in the Premier League have been from set pieces or penalties, which Douglas Luiz is involved with, whether he's giving an assist or a goal. So if you extrapolate that towards the rest of the season, you could say he will get another 11 returns. Then there's the odd assist here and there, or the odd goal. So you could say about maybe 13 returns out of the next 18 matches that are left in the Premier League. So how much do you value that? The question is, when is he going to get those returns? Because you can't really guarantee it. You just have to have him at the right place and at the right time. So I like him more as a long-term pick, where he might blank and not worry too much about it. I like him more as a long-term pick because I think Aston Villa are going to get penalties from now until the end of the season, and they're always going to get goals from set pieces. And I think Douglas Luiz will always be there as long as he's not injured. But as of the type of player where you can just rely on his current form, I think that's just a bit. There's a lot of doubts about that, given that his style of play and the way he plays. So that's one thing to keep in mind for Douglas Luiz. I like him more as a long-term pick that you don't want to worry about whatsoever, and you don't mind that he might blank every now and then, but he's going to get you a return here and there just because of the nature of his position. Now, the final one on this list is Martin Odegaard. I've still got one more pick, so make sure to stay tuned to this video to find out who that is. Martin Odegaard, like Saka, faces the same problems in Arsenal's struggling form as at the moment, where they've lost the last 2 matches. He is 0.6 million cheaper, but plays further behind on the field. But when Arsenal find their form back, and I think they will soon, he is central to the way that they play. He always gives an assist. I know a lot of times it's the assist before the assist, which doesn't count for anything towards FPL, but in many cases he does get assists himself, and he also has a very good shot from far, a very good long-range shot, which does result in many goals for them. So when Arsenal do find their form, I think Odegaard will be a key part of that. So I think it just depends on your strategy. Do you want to go against the grain? If you believe in Arsenal bouncing back from their form, do you want to go against the grain and against all, the 65% of players who own Saka as of the moment? Do you want to own Odegaard instead and go against all of those players? Because I don't think you should have both. I definitely think it's a no-no to have Saka and Odegaard in your team. I just think that based on the evidence that we have, that'll be a waste of money that you could spend elsewhere on a lot of better picks. But if you really believe in Arsenal and you want to go against the grain, then Odegaard will be your pick. And now for the actual final pick of my video, I've got Richarlison from Tottenham at only 6.9 million. There's many reasons why I like him. There's 3 main ones. First one being that with all the players that are going to be missing for Tottenham due to AFCON and AFC, he is probably guaranteed to start in the upcoming matches, and he will probably play for 90 minutes or close to 90 minutes. Second thing is his current form has been great. He had a shaky start to the season with Tottenham, but now he is back on form and he's gaining his confidence, and he has gotten returns in 3 out of his last 4 matches. And the final thing is that he's classified as a midfielder in the game, where actually in real life he plays as a center forward. Now, the concern about Richarlison is that with all those players missing due to AFCON and AFC, he might not be getting the service that he would normally get. But there is a counter to that, in that Maddison will soon be coming back to Tottenham, and he will be coming back from an injury. And the second thing is that Tottenham have shown this season that no matter who is missing from their team, they will always look to attack and play exciting football. So I think Richarlison is a brilliant pick due to all of those reasons. And there you have it, a breakdown of all the potential midfield replacements for Salah and Son. Now, who you pick depends on what you like from your FPL players and how your team is structured and what your goals are. For me personally, this game week, I have a big eye on Haaland, and so as soon as he's declared fit, I want to bring him in to my team, and that limits my transfer decisions just this game week to either Gross or Olise or Garnacho or Douglas Luiz. I'm looking at mostly at Gross for now because he's not injured like Olise, but those two are my favorites. Now, for you, obviously, it might be different. Maybe your goals are different. Let me know about them in the comment box below. I will be coming back before the deadline, and I still want to discuss how my team looks like and what my transfers are. And I'm also going to look at captaincy decisions before the next game week deadline. So until then, enjoy this break from FPL for now, and I will talk to you all soon.